Hey guys.
Hey guys. That's still our line right now. I am Laurie Wilson.
I'm Elle Angelo.
And this is The Cynical Therapist. This is episode 3.
Nice.
Very exciting.
I know, right? We might get good at it soon.
You guys missed us getting ready today. It was actually kind of hilarious because I had about 3 hours to get ready this morning, uninterrupted.
Oh, wow.
Because we don't have children. So it's quiet. We even had a mini dance party because we were listening to some music while we were getting ready. And so Elle came over and she was like, wow, you look great. It's like, well, I had 3 hours to curl my hair, do my makeup. Like, I can't even imagine attempting to do all of that while getting 3 kids ready.
Mm-mm. There is none.
So, but you look like a rock star. So the fact that you were able to do that, I'm so impressed. I feel like I would be, we'll see.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you get good at it. You just get good at it. Being interrupted. It's just part of my morning. So I get
Mom.
Mommy. Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
Sort of. There are highlights.
That needs to be one of the things that we do talk about because Jeff and I are, contemplating, do we have a family? Whatever that looks like for us. And when we ask our friends about children and having kids, they are like, it's the best thing ever. But nobody can really explain what that means.
It's love without baggage. It's having a creature in your world that you have no history other than love.
That's nice.
It is nice, but it is the hardest, most complicated, time-consuming, distracting adventure ever. And if you don't like your partner, it's hellacious.
Yeah. I think we'd be great. I think we make a good team.
Yeah. He's a good man. He's a good dad already. I mean, he's a great uncle.
Yeah.
He's got the dad vibe. And
he
so
does
that's
have the
great,
dad vibe.
Right? He's the type that I would totally support being a stay-at-home dad. You know what I mean? Like he's that and taking
I love when he's editing these because he's just like editing and I'm watching it with him and he's like, oh. Like the time you asked about soulmates and I laughed. It just was like natural for me to laugh. But I think, that would be a good topic for us to talk about. But today's topic.
Yay, it's my favorite.
Comes to you from The Coffin. And it was a topic that somebody wanted us to talk about. So what's our disclaimer? First disclaimer is this is not substitute for therapy. This is just 2 therapists bantering about different topics. Totally. And if you, need help with depression, anxiety, the topic today is couples conflict resolution. So if you need help with communication with your marriage or with your relationship, super important that you go see somebody.
Or with your breakup.
Ooh, or with your breakup.
Yeah.
Or pre-breakup.
Yeah.
Clearly, I am more into trying to make it work. I think we both come from...
I'm on the spectrum at all times.
Yeah. I think that is why we make a really good team, though, because I think that... and I think Steve Carell says it in a movie, like, I'm either here to help you make it work or to help you have a... less complicated breakup, to have an effective breakup, which is where I come from. But also if a couple's coming in to see me and they want to save their marriage or save their relationship, that's kind of, I think, where we try to come from first and foremost. I
feel like that's first. That's the line of defense. Like when you come into therapy, and this is what I loved about my therapist, was when I came in for couples therapy, it never occurred to her to either, that's the worst, to either push for me to make a decision, or she was kind of there to steer the ship, and it was kind of liberating to sound things out. She was the one who actually told me I should be a therapist, was like, listen, this is really important stuff. And for me, cool. it was cool to get permission. Yeah. To make decisions that were for my best interest. And sometimes that means breaking up. Yeah. And that's totally fine. And sometimes that means breaking up then coming back together. And sometimes that means staying together and working through it. Sometimes that means space. And I know everybody hates space.
Sure.
But I think it's really important to just tell yourself the truth. And that's where I go all the time, is tell yourself the truth. Is this relationship worth the work?
Yeah.
Is it easier to be with somebody than it is to be by yourself?
Sure.
Right?
Sure. And maybe to start that off, we can give a little bit of our relationship background and I think sure, the schooling, right? But when I got into, I'm 35 now, when I got into doing therapy, even going to school for it, that was about 5 years ago. So I had already gone through my 20s. I had already gone through, just good, bad, and really bad relationships. Yeah. So I think that's really important, because when I did start doing therapy, I was not married, and people were like, "Oh, are you married? Well, how can you help then if you're not married?" And it's kind of like, well, a cardiologist knows how to do heart surgery, and he's never had it. So it really, I think, if you've been in relationships and you've struggled through a breakup or a bad relationship, it's like you can kind of.
You can relate.
You can relate.
Everybody
can relate.
And also, for you to be 35 and be engaged instead of already married kind of speaks to your taking the marriage vows seriously. I mean, you could get married at 25 and have a shit show relationship and, get married to get out of the house, which was my mom's generation. And then divorce 10 years later and have a mixed family and whatever. And that's pretty modern. But also not saying yes to the terrible relationships, because I'm sure you've been engaged before, or at least thought about it or talked about it.
I think when I was 2008, maybe I was 20, I don't know, 24, 25. And I always say disengaged. And he was a kind person. I mean, very intelligent, very nice. We just did not.
On paper, it was good.
Yeah. And honestly, if I'm being, again, 100% honest, at 24, 25, I was ready. I was like, everybody else is married or getting married. And so I think I did feel that societal pressure of, okay, this is the next step for us. This is what we should do.
Also, your entire friend group is long-term relationship, you know? So you were different. Yeah. Right? So
and full disclosure for this, because this is an important piece of why I did get engaged. In 2008, when I was with my boyfriend, we had gotten pregnant, and I had an ectopic pregnancy. And so I did, and I do, this is again another good topic to talk about, I did struggle with depression a lot during that time. So I think that part of it was just to try to find some kind of comfort, right? And finding comfort in an engagement is probably not the best way to find it.
It's celebration, though. It makes sense to find comfort in the celebration.
Yeah, to get away from the discomfort. So that was, I think, part of the reason why we got engaged. It's not something like, as you guys will hear on here, Elle and I will talk about things, and this was something that I had a problem with, but I was listening to John Kim talk, and he writes the Fatherless Nation book, and just wrote a book, and he says, I talk to my clients, not at them.
Yes.
And so that's always been my struggle of how much personal information to share. But I do think as I move, or as I move at least into my personal thing with it, it's like, you know what? This is relatable. Like, these are things that people struggled with. These are things that are relatable. Obviously, we disclose in the room as needed, but
I'm a disclosure girl.
Yeah.
Because of my appearance, it's important for people to come and sit down and me to almost create an explanation of who I am because of what people think of who I am because of the way I look. So it's like, listen, I understand that I look like I'm a Satanist or, you know what I mean? I don't even know what. Morticia Adams. And I understand that people feel a certain way about that, but it's like, listen, my 20 years of recovery has actually created the authenticity piece.
Yeah.
And the part that, I went to therapy with my daughter and her therapist. This was really powerful. And it's another piece that I'll always take with me. It's like my emotional screenshot where she was like, the way she described me was somebody who understands that she's, I don't want to say a mess, but kind of a mess, but really understands why and is willing to share that, hand that to somebody and be like, dude, I get it. I relate because of this, and this, and not making things about me. I'm more like, whoa, yeah, your struggles are legitimate, and being a therapist and being a mother and being a human and being a woman. Yeah. Okay. I totally relate to that. But it's
totally
the privacy piece for me has been a deep dive because for those of you who've searched me on the internet, you really can't find me anywhere because I've been so scary private.
Yeah.
So this is a lot for me. Like the full disclosure in front of a group of addicts, in front of a treatment center, a group of 45, totally fine with me. But knowing that it's permanent somewhere on the internet is kind of, my heart races a little bit just thinking about it. But I know it's important. Kind of like this disclosure piece is important. Sure. So you just got to swan dive. And it's scary.
Swan dive.
hope I have a parachute.
Somewhere here.
Yeah, somewhere.
Backup as well.
Yeah.
And I think couples conflict resolution is a heavy topic, and something that people call us for. People call us and come into the office for. So we did actually get someone who asked for us to talk about couples conflict resolution, and I asked if you guys wanted like very specific questions answered regarding that. Like, please message me because some of this information might not be pertinent to whatever it is that somebody's going through. So.
Yeah. Conflict does not mean violence. If you guys are in a violent relationship, and I don't mean just violent like he puts his hands on you or she puts her hands on you. I mean, if you don't feel safe, this is not a substitute for that. I really encourage whoever's struggling with financial abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, any of those abuses, that this is not, you're not going to use any of these techniques to fix that.
Yeah.
Seek help, reach out. If you reach out to either one of us, we can help you get referrals to where you need to go, or help you, point you in a direction where you can get the help you need.
Yeah.
Domestic violence in any form or fashion is not going to be resolved by watching a podcast.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's not going to be resolved in just like traditional couples therapy, like EFT, which I'll talk about a little bit in this video. That's not going to be helpful. No. So, and that's, just domestic violence is a heavy thing, and something that, to be honest, I'm like, ooh, I steer clear of that. But it's something we deal with, and it's something we need to talk about, and it's something that, like Elle said, if you reach out, we were happy to provide referrals, because regular therapy will not work.
I mean, there's so much support. There's just not enough conversation. Yeah. Because it's really secret and really ugly. I mean, kind of like conflict resolution. I know for me, because I'm in a spot in my relationship where we're not at a push and pull. We're actually, I mean, this might just be today a very interdependent relationship where both of us kind of know who we are and where we are. And we know, I guess, our limits in arguments, where I used to, full disclosure, throw furniture, freak out, scream, kind of lose pieces of myself and dissociate. I think that's a big piece of my trauma history, that I would become almost animal.
And how long have you guys been married?
We've been married, next 3 weeks, we will have been married 5 years. We've been together for 9 years.
Cool.
This has been fast. The marriage piece has been really fast. I mean, of course, a bunch of children speeds things along. But also, I have become a completely autonomous human in my relationship. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it's like when you're with your partner and you have the same fight, same time, every day. It never gets resolved. It's like a tension thing. You kind of build up the tension, and then sometimes the tension spills over and you're silent, or you're aggressive, or maybe you run away, or you shop, or you go on the internet and ignore your partner, whatever your coping skill is. My relationship becomes now like, hey, don't say that to me. And he'll be like, ooh, and maybe we lock horns for a minute, but I need to come back to the table as the therapist and be like, listen, when you said this to me, I felt this. Yeah. And of course he's like, you don't feel that way, or whatever a person who's not a therapist would say. And I always kind of meet him back with,
you're always analyzing me. Right? Exactly. Being married, like, full disclosure too, for our poor husbands, poor partners, being married to a therapist.
It's all fun and games
until somebody gets hurt.
Until somebody gets quiet.
I think when Jeff and I first started going to our therapy, he started learning some of the words, like, you're catastrophizing, or you're doing this, which now it's sometimes helpful when you're not in a disagreement, when your partner points things out, like, hey, I feel like maybe you're catastrophizing. And I can receive that and listen. When we are in a disagreement, I cannot receive anything. I cannot listen.
That's the autonomous piece. Yeah. Right? I need to be able to tell my husband in non-therapeutic words, I'm feeling really flooded and activated, and the words that I use are like, I just need some space, or I need a moment. It usually has some sort of expletive.
And when you say feeling flooded or activated.
Yes.
And before Elle answers that, let's go back real quick. So what Elle was talking about as far as getting into a disagreement with your partner. So EFT, which is emotion focused therapy, they describe it as you get into a cycle. And so the cycle is very typical for most couples. And so you do the same thing. So like if I'm yelling and my partner disengages, right? Or defends. So whatever that looks like, when you're in the cycle, it just will keep going.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're talking about, and what EFT teaches couples is to recognize when they're in the cycle, recognize what they need from that, and recognize how to kind of de-escalate it or whatever.
That.
Yeah.
And I often say to my clients, like, you're hitting this at a 10 when this deserves a 3.
Sure.
And we have to grab it at a 3 before it gets to a 7, because once you're at a 7, it's full tilt 10 in a moment, right?
And when you talk about flooding, is that what you mean by, can you describe flooding? Can you say
flooding to me is like the emotional equivalent to going to a rock concert and the difference between the music they play between the bands and then when the music of the band starts. So the flooding, the colors and lights and everything is cranked all the way up. I'm at a 10 where my whole body is locked in. I'm engaging in whatever my brain is telling me to do, which for me is a freeze. I'm not a fight or a flighter. I'm a freeze. I'm a standstill, shut down. And that is so hard to deal with when you are, in crisis. But so when I'm feeling locked in and I go into that space where my head starts telling me, like, this man doesn't love you. You need to escape. Nobody's going to take care of you. You need to do this yourself. And then automatically my brain clicks over to that primal piece where it's like, I have to run. I have to protect. I have to create safety.
Sure.
So running into the bunny hole and sitting there and shaking like a little bunny until I can kind of articulate what I need. It's that I need to be able to come back to my husband. And it used to take me like 3 days. Now the turnaround is about 45 minutes.
That's good.
Which is epic for somebody like me. And I think it's hard work. And I also think that being a therapist, I try to do the things I tell my clients to do. And hey, they work. It's weird.
Yeah.
So if our typical conversation used to be such white girl problems, how much I spend at Starbucks. Because our account, it used to be like he would see that every day before work I would go to Starbucks. And because I'm a non-drinker, I believe I am allowed to go to Starbucks every fucking day if I want to. And I'm sorry for the F word, but it's one of those things where I don't go to bars and I don't buy beer.
Sure.
And I can't have more than one coffee. I'll cry or go into a room somewhere dark.
He'd be so proud today because we actually did not go to Starbucks today. We actually made our own coffee. Yet.
I will not agree with that. But the way I solved that is I put the Starbucks app on my phone. So then it just pulls out $20 at a time instead of an everyday thing. So it wasn't really a solution. It was the way I made it okay. Sorry, honey. So when we would have these fights, he would come to me and he would be like, listen, or the way he would present it to me was like, why are you spending so much money at Starbucks instead of, hey, I'm looking at the bank account. I don't really think there's any way he could have presented this where I would be okay with it. Full disclosure, actually, now that I'm thinking back.
Now that I'm processing it.
But what I heard was, you are not worth money.
Yes.
That's what I heard. And it wasn't what he was saying at all. But what I heard was, why are you spending money on yourself? You are not worth $4 a day. And so my heart of hearts, in that moment, I was like, listen, I am worth the world. You are a man and you're trying to keep me down, or whatever I tell myself. And so I would instantly go into defense of, I make my own money. You can't tell me what to do. Dad, you're not even my real dad, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, who do you think you are? When all he was doing was trying to sit me down and have like a normal conversation about budgeting. But because of who I am and where I've come from, I've never been capable, willing to talk about money in a non-emotional state.
Yeah.
So what we had to do, and this, for me, this is a conflict resolution piece that was very uncomfortable for him and myself, was he had to sit there and we had to talk about money, and he had to be okay with the fact that I would be crying while we were talking about money, because I can't not cry. Where I'm like crying and he's like horrified, because most men are horrified by crying women, and some women too, but just like, we don't have to talk about this. I'm like, no, we need to do this. This is like exposure therapy. Like the emotional piece of being in an abusive relationship prior to my relationship with my husband now was I was financially controlled and financially abused. And that to me was like, ooh, we need to just rip the Band-Aid off and like pull these stitches out. And I need to re-heal this wound. And the only way to do it is for you to experience the level of what is that even, like the level of just complete panic and re-traumatization in order to heal the wound. And it's so hard, especially because my husband is not emotional. And it's hard for him to see me that way because I'm not a crier.
Sure.
So for me, it's like, we just have to do this. Hang on to this. And it's become a lot better.
Yeah.
But I've changed about it. It had nothing to do with him experiencing me in an emotional way. It was like, I had to tell myself, hey, you're totally worth $4 a day. And you're going to be okay. And even if he wants to have a conversation with you about this, it has nothing to do with the way you feel about it.
Or your worth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the financial piece has also been difficult for us. But they say finances and sex, the two things that, we see most people for. But now I know you said your husband and you still sit down and you'll just cry. Well, Jeff and I have actually come up with a clever way that is actually super helpful to me. We now budget or do our finances with a PowerPoint presentation. So
I love that.
It's so fun. And actually we do that with a lot of things. So we have this thing where it's like asking permission, but I think we just,
with a wink and a nudge.
Yeah, like playfully asking, hey, do we have anything going on this weekend? I was going to maybe do this with my friends. It's not so much asking permission, but just being kind to your partner and making sure that you're not, because that tendency to be like, what do you mean I'm not worth it, right? And so that's kind of, there was a seminar that we went to talking about finances, and maybe later in the video I can share those books.
Holy shit.
We did. There's a Marriage Matters seminar that the church we go to, Mariners, holds, and it honestly is like super beneficial, but we've been meaning to go. And the one we signed up for was about finances, which we thought was hilarious because it was something we needed to talk about. So I'll share those books later in the video after we take a break. But we've found a playful way to talk about things, and that's super important to us because I will tend to get defensive when we're talking about things, as they said in this seminar, a lot of women do, because we don't feel worth it. So if I'm leaving work and had a really busy day and I call my husband and I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to pick up Chinese. And he says, oh, well, we have chicken here. I can just cook. Automatically it goes to, I'm not worth just picking up food, which is kind of what you were sharing. And for men, it's something where, if I go out in the yard or I come in the house and say something about, I hate our carpet or something, that's like shaming for men because
somehow they are the carpet.
Right.
Just like we are the money problems.
Exactly. Right. So it's such an interesting dynamic when dealing with that. So I think what we'll do real quick is we'll take a break, and then we will jump right into maybe like 3 or 4 ways, like easy ways to resolve conflict based on kind of just quick therapeutic principles. But therapy is going to be the best way to resolve couples conflict. So we'll be right back.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.